This week's movie, Who Am I? I'm a video store clerk who becomes the centre of a reality TV show's experiment that's gone too far. Stay tuned to find out. You're listening to the Banana Reel Movie Podcast, episode 40. Warning, this show contains spoilers and potential coarse language, so you've been forewarned. Hey there, folks. We are the Theatre Gorillas, and I'm one of your hosts, Carlos.
Hey!
I'm Dan.
I'm Lee.
And each and every week, we all get together and try and discuss something that we've watched that hopefully you will enjoy.
Heath is just so proud of his own name.
I was just more though,
Heath.
Everyone just went, and I just went, Heath!
Yeah.
You should know who I am by now.
You should know that he's slightly retarded.
Hey, just because I failed that test once...
You ate the test.
Well, actually, they told me that I passed the test.
You passed it after about 8 or 9 hours.
And that's why you were
I
committed.
was thinking the exact same thing, Lee. Anyway, you can always find us at theatregorillas.com. Twitter is at theatregorillas. Facebook.com/theatregorillas. We're on YouTube. Just search for us. And of course, if you want to send us some feedback, you can always do that at theatregorillas@gmail.com. All spelt the UK English way.
Yes.
Right. So this week, we are looking at Bound to Vengeance.
Bound to a vegetable.
Kind of.
Yes. It's where the villain from Kindergarten Cop came back to be a villain in this film.
Yes.
Yes. Has he?
So it's
has
on
he?
the same level? Like it's, the same sort of vibe?
I was waiting. Yeah, you know what? I kind of got it. I was waiting for the kid to climb up the antenna, and I was waiting for Arnie to come in and find something. But then I realized Dolph Lundgren's doing the sequel, and so I really don't care anymore.
You don't care of Arnold Schwarzenegger coming in? Or?
No, that this movie has anything to do with Kindergarten Cop.
But it's like
but the train of thought that I just went on there.
But it's more than a 6th degree of separation.
It is.
Oh, yes. Okay, so we've established this movie has nothing to do with Kindergarten Cop.
It is not
Yeah.
Kindergarten Cop.
So it's a good start.
So we're going to go through and name piece by piece
Yeah.
why it's not like Kindergarten
We
Cop.
probably should.
I think we should just run off a list of movies that it's not like.
Oh,
That
yeah.
could be the whole
yeah.
podcast.
It's not like,
Titanic.
it's not like that.
It's not like Star Wars, really.
Well, let's
No,
see how
it's
it
not.
could be like Star
It's really
Wars.
not.
There's a captured girl.
And that's about it.
There is a couple of people in there that are too short to be a stormtrooper.
How do you know?
Well, you know exactly right. That's true.
The equal opportunity in, what is it?
In Force Awakens.
Yeah, that's right.
That's true.
Well, she certainly had to force herself out.
And she did get awakened.
Well, as we should move on, because
Yeah.
this is going
This is-
horribly wrong.
And it's also going nowhere.
Well, I must also say at the at the outset that I haven't actually watched the film, so I'm talking out of my ass. I don't know what you guys
Excellent.
are doing.
Rather than ask us questions this time around, maybe you should just join in and pretend that you know and see how far you are away from the actual
See
story.
how you get it.
Yeah.
So, Lee, what did you think about the plot of this movie?
It was rubbish. Like you could see it coming from a mile away. There she was doing her thing, and he's just all there.
And on that,
Bound to a vegetable.
okay, now on that, let's actually, going back into the actual movie, or actually
Thank you,
getting into
please.
it indeed. You just said that then, this time thing, right? 6 months.
Yeah.
Was it 6 months?
Yeah.
Okay, when does it indicate that?
At the beginning somewhere.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I was going to say, that's one thing I know. I kept on trying to gauge, how long was she captured for?
Well, see, I read the
I was-
introduction
yeah.
of iTunes, and I thought it said 9 months.
No, it was 6 months. Somebody else referred to it in another review.
In another review?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fair
Yeah,
enough.
I personally didn't notice it in the film.
Yeah, because I was going,
All I could tell you is that we have shots of her before the incident,
yes.
and then she is chained to a bed.
Yes, exactly right.
That's it.
And that's it. And so you kind of gets thrown straight into she's a captive. We don't. I was actually under the impression we don't know how long she's been there for. We're not meant to know, and we just know that it was there long enough for her to, well, obviously to have someone near her die, because we do get that from straight away that, how he goes, you don't have to share it with anyone anymore because that person's gone. So you realize that straight away that she wasn't the only one in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, she's she's there, but she uses that opportunity as well to then free herself from her captor.
Right.
Is this sort of leveraged off that story about that guy holding a couple of women in his basement?
Fritzl.
No,
Can't remember
the
the guy's
Austrian
name,
dude?
but yeah.
the American one.
Yeah, no, I know which one you're talking about, where he had the 3 girls in the
Yeah.
house.
Yeah, not really. It's sort of, there's a more all-encompassing conspiracy theory to it all.
All right, so this is just taking that scenario
It's
and just starting with their own story.
it's basically sex trafficking with a horror bent.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or more, yeah, it's
Or thriller.
a thriller. You've got
Yeah, I'd say it's more horror than thriller.
really? Why?
Is it gore?
Well,
or
the
not?
setups at each of the houses they go to.
Yeah,
The
true.
chick
And,
with the cage on her
and
face.
especially when you've got the different women who are captive. So
Yeah.
the thing is as well, sorry,
The
because
camera
we've
angles.
kind of come into this from the left-hand field kind of thing.
Left of field.
Left of field, thank you. Where so when what we end up finding out is that the woman who is like the protagonist of the film.
Hang on, let's
Yeah.
not get to the ending yet.
No, but I'm just more saying that we do know that this is. Oh no, I'm more saying we realize that she isn't the only one. Like
Yeah,
she
so
knows
that's-
very early on that she's not the only one who's
That's
being.
part of the premise that iTunes throws up to you, that she, instead of fleeing after she escapes her torment,
Yes.
she actually goes back in to figure out more.
Yeah, exactly right. And then she goes and she realizes, okay, there's more out there, and she goes on virtually a quest to try and rescue these other girls.
What it comes down to is essentially that he is beaten so badly by her right from the beginning that he needs to go to the hospital. And she's taking the only vehicle, and they're in the middle of nowhere. He won't make it. So he tricks her, or not tricks her, but he makes a deal with her, If you take me to the hospital, I'll tell you all the others.
Yeah.
So he guilt trips her
Mind you,
on top of everything that she's already gone through.
Yeah, to come back to the beginning. All right, so there's flashbacks to some found footage of her and her boyfriend and her sister hanging out, having a great time at the carnival, right? Then it cuts to her in the basement. He comes in, she bricks him in the face, gets away, runs outside and finds her in the middle of nowhere. She sees the car, she can't find the keys. So she goes searching through the house, and that's where she uncovers this evidence of the other women. So there's something like 9, because I think one of the Polaroids
Yeah.
was numbered 9.
I almost forgot about that.
Yeah.
So she goes back to him, tells him to give her the keys, and that's where he, sort of forges this
Barters.
deal with her. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, well, you can go, but if you take me to a hospital, I'll show you where the other women are.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, actually, when she comes in, she asks him, she's like, what did you do with the other women?
Yeah.
And he's like, I'll tell you if you take me to the hospital.
Yeah, so it's kind of he's using those other women as leverage to get her to get him to get medical attention.
Yeah.
So, I mean, essentially, this is just your basic revenge porn story.
Well, it's funny because when I first, when you first brought up that we're going to watch this movie, I looked at the synopsis and I went, you know what it's reminding me a lot of? I Spit on Your
I
Grave.
Spit on Your Grave, yeah.
I have not heard or seen that one.
Okay, so exploitation film back from the 70s?
Yeah, 78.
Yeah, so back for and whatnot, and basically, a girl's camping. She ends up getting kidnapped, brutally raped, left for dead.
Right.
She doesn't die. She survives, but then she goes on a fucking killing spree to kill her, the people who captured and brutalized her.
Yeah. See, now there's more similarity in this movie to the remake they did in 2010 than there is the original movie.
Yeah, see, I haven't seen the remake, so can't.
So the
comment.
original movie was one of the first sort of massive exploitation films. There was something like 30 minutes of gang rape in the final film.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
30 minutes of gang rape footage.
Yeah.
So it was aiming for like the height of just pure
Shock.
It was
Yeah,
pretty much going for
exactly.
an X rating without actually showing physical penetration.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it,
Borderlining snuff.
Yeah, virtually, exactly right.
So it was interesting to see what they did with the remake that came out in 2010. They sort of very much toned down that side of it. There was only about 5 minutes of gang rape, and then the rest of the movie was about her coming back and taking revenge.
Yeah.
There was a particularly sort of shocking bit in the remake where the retarded brother of one of her captors is encouraged to rape her as well.
Jesus.
So, yeah.
This has a vague sort of reminiscence of Old Boy,
Yeah, okay.
with
But
the twisted nature of that as well. Like,
Yeah.
But again, not as fucked up.
Yeah, exactly. Like it was. And so that's why when I first was reading this, I was going, "Oh, this is what the movie is. This is what we're going to be
Right.
seeing."
Yeah.
And then it's very much not. Like it's very much not. But also, like, what,
all that explanation for that.
Yeah, I was going to
Yeah.
say that was my payoff. Just and it's not like
Yeah,
that.
but it's
So
also
what other movies isn't it like?
no, but it's more though.
I told you we should have just done a list.
Exactly right. We just did a whole list. But no, it's more because, one, it's not really, it doesn't really show you anything that happens. Like,
They're not
for
particularly
example,
explicit about
rape
the
or
assaults.
The assaults. That's all off camera. We know it's happening and we know it's happened or happened. But
Yeah,
it's
so
all
you
off
do
camera.
feel for the character.
You totally do.
Yeah.
And you feel for the other women as well. But yeah, so they've done that, which I thought they did quite well.
See, I think it was to their credit that they didn't make it so explicit.
Yeah, I was quite happy with that as well. I thought there were actually, and that because of that, it kind of didn't have that grittiness to it, which it didn't need.
Yeah.
Because when you think about those exploitation films worked really well back in the day for the reason that they were just being done. When you start to revisit it, it becomes a bit.
Because let's remember that none of these exploitation films, like the original sort of wave, were particularly good.
No, they were crap.
Like Roger Ebert called the original "I Spit on Your Grave" the worst movie ever made.
Oh yeah, and can I say it's pretty fucking awful.
Yeah.
But it's more the the storyline. It's like the cult classicness, so that's why it kind of stuck in my brain.
Yeah. So that's the progeny we're coming from with this movie. Obviously, it feels like a modernized take on that sort of genre in that it is more realistic. Yeah, it's not as over the top.
Yeah.
But I think where this movie in particular falls down is the plot itself. So, and it's almost from the first sort of 10 minutes of the film, like where she escapes from him, right? She goes outside, finds the car, whatever, and then she finally gets the keys to the car and doesn't call the cops, doesn't go to a police station.
Ever.
Like, it never enters her mind. The chick she rescues, the third chick that finally survives her rescue attempt, is repeatedly saying, let's call the cops, they should be doing shit about this. It's not our remit. And it was never quite clearly explained why, she took this vigilante approach to it.
I reckon it's to do with the way the film ends. And I don't know whether we should just reveal it just straight now, but...
Let's work our way up to it.
Okay, well, we'll come back to that note.
Yeah.
So continue and...
Well, see, but I'm also going to... This is where I'm going to agree without even saying what the ending is. I thought, like what you were saying, how it kind of misses it a little bit because you do kind of... It's a lot of lead up for that one particular moment.
Yeah.
With not a lot of exposition to tell you exactly what she's thinking and how she's feeling.
Yeah.
Where you're kind of guessing, you're wondering. And that to me isn't good storytelling. That's to me, or, clever storytelling. That's more, lazy.
For me, I'll agree with Dan on this point that if you're in a circumstance like this, the first thing you're going to do is look for help. She doesn't.
No.
Right? So that's where in this sort of world it just falls apart. But given the backstory, when you eventually get there, you can kind of understand why she doesn't. And the thing that gets me the most is not so much the plot. I think the plot works on paper, but it doesn't work in this picture because the way that the editing is done, and the editing falls apart because it's trying to be too artsy with its cuts rather than directly to the point. And so it constantly jumps from the found footage back to what's actually happening, back to found footage, where the found footage is supposed to try and reveal a little bit more of backstory. But the setup and the payoff isn't enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that was my problem with the found footage. I feel like it gave away too much. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I worked out the ultimate conceit sort of halfway through, if not earlier.
No, earlier.
They really labored the flashback scenes, so by the time you finally got to it, it was like, there was nothing sort of revelatory about it
Exactly
whatsoever.
right. Without actually revealing what it was, what the...
Well, we're getting away there.
So who that person was, you guessed very quickly that...
Yeah, let's
that
step away from the reveal if you want to hold it.
Yeah.
I was just going to say the bit I like about these ones that have got a bit of... these movies that have got a bit of mystery to them is actually being able to work it out.
Yeah.
Where it sounds like they were using the found footage as deliberate exposition rather than just in giving you little pieces, little tidbits.
Yeah.
I don't quite see that with this film, particularly when our main villain, let's just call him that,
Phil.
So the main captor, he blatantly says something that should have been left for a reveal, which explains why she wants revenge and wants to save these girls rather than just save her own neck. And that happens within the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So everything is, well, indirectly is referenced within the first 10 minutes. And it just, when the reveal finally happens, there's no emphasis anymore.
See, remember there's 2 levels to the reveal as well. So
you're gonna have to spit it out because we're going on it for 10 minutes now.
Okay, so there's 2 levels to the reveal, right? The first is that it was her boyfriend that headhunted her for this group, this sex slave ring or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, he's then he's the hunter.
Yeah. And then the second reveal was right before the end credits when you find out the reason she's doing it all was because she saw her sister die next to her.
Well, then
that
actually
secondary reveal was, like you said, was completely sort of thrown out the window in the first 10 minutes because it was clear that her sister was in the room with her, you know, through those scattered flashbacks. So it's like, well, obviously she died.
But not just that. Directly, Phil says to her, she died because of your fault. All you needed to do was share your food.
Yeah. Mind you, it was because...
Well, she was trying to, but she was kind of...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
the sister was refusing to eat. Yeah, but so that's the thing. Like, none of this was particularly revelatory, you know? Like, you worked out early on through the clues from the found footage that the boyfriend was involved. So by the time you got to what should have been a big reveal and like an aha moment, it was all like, yeah, okay, we got that already. You know?
And to the point as well where you just go, oh, okay. And that's where I really feel like what they were trying to do more, I think, was go through the different micro stories with picking up the girls.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
You know, so you get your first one who's got, like you said, who's got the cage on her head. Oh, no, you don't. That was the second one. The first one, she's so, tortured. Traumatized that she just freaks out the moment she's free and runs, but unfortunately runs straight into a trap and...
Well, it wasn't a
no,
trap.
I don't think it was a trap at all.
No.
But you know what? It was
just debris.
It was, but you know what? It was meant to. I think it was meant to be. It was meant to be a, just in case they run trap.
No, because it was just a fence set up next to some rubber hosing.
Wasn't
not rubber, plastic.
Wasn't it a rake? She
just got like it was like the plastic air conditioning coil things.
Yeah.
And then fell onto.
Well, there you go. I thought it was like something like that. But see, even then, that's it.
Yeah.
And it was just
the reason this all happens, just so it's in context for Lee, the reason it all happens is because she's been cooped up in there. She's terrified, and she just goes running and doesn't look where she's going. She just wants to escape.
Yeah.
That's how this all happened. And so every time we go to a house to try and save someone else, you find something else is wrong with this person.
Yeah, there's generally like a level of something that's happened.
Well, it's the first 2 houses they go to, both the chicks are really fucked up. By the time they get to the third house, she hasn't even been raped yet. Because remember, she comes out and she's like, they were going to rape me. So the first 2 were obviously sort of had been there the longest.
Yeah.
So one of them, I can't even guess how long, but yeah, they were completely...
So are we saying that our protagonist is probably number 3?
I would say chronologically, yeah, it would make sense.
Yeah.
Well, but see, then, that would make sense chronologically, but then there's nothing to indicate that.
Well, no.
And especially when you've not only with that, you've got obviously the one who's been there second, who's got Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
She's there, and she's, very sympathetic and doesn't want to leave. But then you've also got the obviously the human trafficking, like you said, the sex slaves.
Yeah.
Who there's hundreds of them. Well, not hundreds. There's heaps of them 20 of them in there, and they just go, the pretty ones get picked first.
So that's the 4th house they get to.
Yeah.
But you'd think that one's been there been going on for ages.
Oh, okay. The house itself, yes, but the women in there wouldn't necessarily have been there longer than the other 2. I read an interesting theory about this second house. Okay, so we got the first house. There's a black chick. She runs away scared, trips over, impales herself quite impressively, I must say, on some spikes. Goes through her throat and through her hand. The second house they get to, there's this chick with a giant sort of cage around her head. And she's tied up sort of crucifixion style. And when they come in, Phil, the bad guy, says to her, she's come to take your place, meaning Eve, the chick that's perpetrating all this revenge. I read an interesting theory about that. It may not necessarily be that chick had Stockholm syndrome and didn't want to be replaced. It may have been she came in the same circumstances. So when she first came into the room, whatever chick was there at the time, Phil said to her, you're being replaced, and killed her. So maybe she thought she was going to be killed. And
so she's now,
reflexively, yeah.
But see, we don't know that, though.
No, we don't.
That's all hypothetical.
No, but it also makes sense either way.
Yeah, either way, it does, exactly.
And I mean, with these kinds of movies, you do want to allow for a certain sort of freedom of exposition there. You
Yeah.
know, you want to fill in some of the gaps yourself, like with the ending.
Yeah, true. Yeah, actually, that's true, though, yeah.
I wanted to move on. I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think about the performances of everyone?
Look,
Insert cricket noise.
yeah, exactly.
They were all adequate.
They were.
They all turned up.
Thank you, Lee. Thank
Yeah,
you.
They all turned up and they were all filmed.
The thing is, though, you kind of got to work with what you've got. And I don't think this is a really good representation of what some of these actors can do. So, like, for example, Richard Tyson, the guy who plays Phil, kindergarten cop guy. He, for all intents and purposes, isn't a bad actor. He's actually, because I've seen him in other things and he is not bad. However, it didn't have exactly a lot to do considering he was, for majority of it, injured and tied
Maimed.
up and
Yeah.
maimed in the boot of a car. So what can he do? So was I impressed with his performance? Not really. But at the same time, the protagonist person, like the Eve or whatever her name is, yeah, you know what? At first I was a bit like, okay, I thought there's some things that she did were really, really good. Like, for example, and it wouldn't have been her choice, it would have been director's choice, but when she's in the shower at the beginning of the movie with pointing the gun at the door, fuck, that was a great shot. I thought that was absolutely fantastic. And also the fact that she didn't get completely undressed. Like, that was just a really good way of showing how she's still, yes, she got herself free, but she's not free.
Yeah.
And she knows that. But anywho, aside from those little things, I didn't really enjoy her acting.
I thought she
all.
put in a good physical performance.
Yeah.
You know, like with this kind of movie, it's not so much the lines delivered; it's the way
Yeah.
she physically embodies the role. You know, she had that sort of badass sort of side to her. You know,
Yeah.
What I did like is how her character progresses from being quite fragile at the beginning, fighting to survive,
Yeah.
to moving into this predatory state.
Yeah, look-
where
yeah.
she's tooling weapons or equipment to make sure that she's at a safe distance from this person and doing her best to do whatever she needs to do throughout the course of the film to make sure that she can actually get it done. So one of the things she creates is the leash,
Yeah.
the neck leash. She grabs a
So it's like what they use on stray dogs?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly that. She grabs a piece of pipe, some telephone wire, and a rod, and puts it all together and keeps him at arm's bay for a length of the movie.
but if we're talking about the performance of the actors, that has nothing to do with that. That's the
No,
writing.
but her delivery of the fragility of just escaping where she's having her shower, trying to wash the filth off her, and being nervous and being in the shower and just seeing just the way that she's portraying being
Afraid.
Thank you.
Yeah.
yeah,
To suddenly switching to being a predator to gain vengeance and revenge. Interesting. Her performance is interesting. I think the guy playing Phil, whatever his name is, Richard Tyson. I think his performance is okay. I don't think it's anything spectacular like you were saying, Heath.
Did it remind anybody of like a predatorial version of Heath Ledger's The Joker? Like a sex pest version of The Joker?
No.
No, not to me.
His voice especially. He was putting on that, the Joker voice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to re-listen to it.
So to me, it was more so that it was just his years of being in B-grade films is like, well, I've got a chance to actually have this thing pay off. And it just didn't quite deliver for me. I think his character is fine. I think he plays his character okay. I just don't think he's a fit for this film.
Yeah, okay.
As for the other characters, the other actors, I think it's more so the script or maybe the director.
Yeah, but
All the characters seem just a little bit flat.
they're also...
Well, because the problem is there isn't much depth to the other characters. They're either imprisoned sex slaves or they're dudes looking to hook up with imprisoned sex slaves. So, you don't need much character development there. You're either terrified or
terrifying.
you're a creep.
Yeah, exactly right.
So I think that was probably by virtue of the fact that there weren't any more sophisticated roles written into the script as much as the fact that the performances themselves were flat.
What about technically? Was the traps and the deaths, do they look realistic?
The set pieces are good. Like I think they're thought out. They're
They were going for natural. So they weren't going for like as in they weren't going for Saw.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was
They
about to
weren't
ask
going
that,
for.
yeah.
I mean, granted, with the mask, you kind of almost went, "Oh, okay, what are they going for? Are they going for Saw here?" But then it's done within 5 seconds.
Yeah.
It's more that they're going for brutality. So they're going for fists and on flesh, or brutal shots to the head. That's what they're going for. And with that, so I thought the fight and the death scenes, they actually did look quite nice for that.
And they were quick. They never took too long.
And that was the thing as well. It was all quick. And that goes back to the whole, a lot of stuff happens off camera, like all the most brutal stuff, all the gore happens off camera.
Do we have
Yeah.
the costing for this?
It was an indie film. I'm not sure exactly how much it cost.
I imagine it wouldn't have been too expensive.
No, it was a lower budget. I especially
So
liked
they did well.
the soundtrack. Did anybody else enjoy that? That sort of really almost
did.
glitch electronic sort of backing that really sort of built up the
I noticed it
mania?
towards the start when she initially takes him out with a brick
yeah.
and gets herself free. But after that, it was more of for me, it was more of a what's going to happen in the next house.
Yeah.
And so I concentrated more on that. The music became part of the
Yeah, I
background.
mean, it wasn't always evident. It sort of ebbed and flowed as the emotional content of the scenes picked up. And like, especially it builds again at the end, you know, for the grand finale. So it was subtle, but I think it worked quite well. Simon Boswell did the music, so good job, Simon.
Boz, good on you, Boz.
Yeah,
I don't know who you are, Boz, but it's fine.
you've done well.
You did well. Yeah, I didn't actually take any notice of the soundtrack at all, actually. I was
Then
trying to...
how did you watch the movie? Fingers in your ears?
Yeah, pretty much. I went, la, 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 la. Anyway, no, but as in...
Scary!
more what I meant was, as in...
You didn't notice it.
It didn't come out at me going, wow,
Right,
that sounds
okay.
fucking amazing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I was saying, like, after the initial sort of stages of the film sort of play out,
Yeah.
for me, it became more of a background thing. Like, it didn't really stick out for me.
Well, that's because there wasn't much of it after the
Yeah.
beginning. There was, like I said, there was more at the end, and it was only a couple of points to sort of punctuate the more emotive scenes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I always say that about sort of technical things. If you don't notice it, it means it probably worked well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like it only sticks out if it's particularly good or if it's particularly bad.
Yeah.
And if it's just not the kind of movie that needs a musical score,
Yeah.
then it's fine to just have it in the background.
Like you would have noticed if the Beatles were playing all the way through.
Yeah, true. I Am Sam.
Yeah.
For me, with this movie, I found more than anything, I found the editing annoying.
You mean the cuts?
Yeah, all the style choices of all the cuts where the found footage would come in and
Talking about the non-linear sort of nature of the found footage versus what's actually going on.
especially towards the end, like when she's deciding whether to let him live or act out the revenge and get rid of him once and for all. And she's walking down the street and you got those cuts with the found footage and it's coming back to her and so forth. To me, it was completely needless. We already understand what she's gone through. We understand what they've done to all these girls. And we already know that it's her sister. It's just so obvious but they still wait for that reveal through the found footage that for me, it was just pointless.
I agree that it was probably unnecessary, but I think that's essentially the aesthetic they were going for.
Yeah, I think it could have, well, at least the choices of what they were showing could have been done better.
Yeah, see, there could have been more exploration of the backstory through that found footage. It was essentially just reiterating, oh, they're a couple. Oh, hey, there's the sister. They're out at the carnival for the day.
Yeah.
Like there was no real building of any sort of backstory there. It was just reiterating the same situation.
Yeah,
so I agree with you there.
And so for me, like, you'd get to a really interesting part of the film and then
There's a break.
There's a break and it completely
It stops the
separates
flow of the
you.
movie. Do you think it was always intended to be found footage? It wasn't a prequel scene or an end
No,
scene?
absolutely. It was because, as I just showed Heath, there's a short after credits sequence that shows again the boyfriend filming the two of them. And it turns out that he was using this footage to sell them into the slave market.
Yeah.
So he'd shop that around to people who potentially wanted to bang sex slaves and, to give them an idea of what was coming in the next batch or whatever you want to call it.
It gets a bit sus too when he's got the camera and he's asking you what your age is. One of the other questions, like, what's your size?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Something really odd. Like, that's just weird.
But there you go. It's all like, we're having fun. Anyway.
Yeah. So it turns out that was a fundamental plot point, but by the time you work that out, it was not necessarily very surprising.
And also it was kind of pointless because by the time you generally would figured that kind of thing out early.
Yeah.
But then
exactly.
when they reveal, that was the case. Oh, well then fuck. There you go. It's pointless now.
Yeah, exactly. We'd work
for
that
me,
out.
for me, like, it's not the first time you hear him ask a couple of weird questions. It's when they're trying to, like, build up this momentum towards the end for the sister.
Yeah.
So you realize it's her sister.
But you already knew.
But that's exactly right. But what they should have done, in my opinion, is they already mentioned his questioning the particular questions in the interview process, right? Earlier in the film. So what they could have done is just emphasize that further in some way. I wouldn't know how, but emphasize that further earlier on so that when she comes up to the last house and finds him in there, then it all clicks into play. And all you need to do is replay the same scene or something like that just to drive it home so that when he gets there, there is a question of doubt. But then, or even just play the audio. You don't necessarily need to see the footage again. And it would be something that would just key in that memory and then help the audience come to that realization and drive home that emphasis of, oh shit,
But again, I think the problem is that we've already worked it out before she gets to that point.
Yeah.
So, had you been surprised when she walked into the house and saw that her boyfriend was there, then maybe that would have worked. But
Yes.
they'd already flogged the goat, like 45 minutes before that.
Well, actually, and you're right, because he kept on saying,
And
you know,
film.
Ronnie, I know Ronnie. How do you think I know Ronnie? And he's saying that over and over and over again. Exactly right. Like I said, flogging the fucking dead goat. Yeah, we know now. We know. And you always did know that he was, the creep, basically.
Yeah.
Who did that. Yeah, look, like you said, with the found footage and cutting that in and out, it just made for useless, well, not useless exposition. It made for important exposition made useless because they'd already revealed it without it.
Well, that's why I was asking before. Did they actually need the found footage shit?
No, I reckon it
actually
would have
more
been. I reckon it would have had more of an impact to be at the start and
Yes.
right at the end.
That's what
it.
I'm thinking. Yeah, used a lot more sparingly. Yeah. Because that was the point. The fact that they kept throwing back to this found footage just reinforced the reveal way before it was meant to come about.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah, so you're exactly right. You're exactly right. Did they need it? No, they didn't at all.
Yeah.
All right, so I think maybe some final thoughts on this one here.
Yeah. Well, I'll start, guys. Yeah. No, it sounds very interesting. I probably would have had more of an inkling to see it just from the iTunes blurb, as in that's the point of the iTunes blurb, to draw you in. But after hearing you guys talk about it, it seems like it was okay, but not amazing. And it had potential to be so much more. It sounds like there's just a few little issues with it.
I think if they treated the audience, it's funny, I kept on, as we've been having this conversation, going, how could they have made this better? How could they have made this better? And I think if they treated the audience as being smarter, then they wouldn't have made certain choices in the making of the film, which would have meant that it would have been a more, suspenseful, a more thrilling, it would have been a better movie. Because the concept is fantastic. Like, don't get me wrong, I actually really like the concept and the premise, but I actually didn't like how it was put through at all. Like, I really just did not. Ended up, by the end of it, I found it so boring. Like, I thought it was just a boring movie.
All right.
So, with that summation, would you like to give it a rating?
Yeah, look, I can give it a rating. I kind of always, like I said, I always go by, would I recommend this to someone to watch it? And I go, you know what? If it turns up on Netflix or a streaming service where you don't actually have to pay for it, or 99 cents on iTunes, give it a watch. If not, you're not missing out. So rating-wise, probably give it 1 banana.
Wow, 1 banana.
Yeah, it's no Tank Girl.
Well, that's true. You think we'll ever come back to the dizzying heights of terribleness that was Tank
I think
Girl?
we need to start going to the dizzying
Look,
heights of
I've already
terribleness.
got one up my sleeve. I've been waiting to force on you guys. So
Maybe we can do that in the next
I
couple of weeks.
reckon I've got one.
Is it Plan 9?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, well, Lee, I think you're right in that it's not a terribly good movie. It's not a bad movie. It was a bit of fun, I can't say I was bored all the way through, but yeah, we've discussed the problems with it. The pacing was off. I feel like I say that a lot. The pacing was off. But yeah, the reveals they hit the wrong beats when it comes to the big reveal at the end. They'd already established, what was meant to be the big twist. But that being said, yeah, it was a bit of fun. Like you said, Heath, if it's on a streaming service or, if it's on telly or something, yeah, it's worth a watch, but don't go out of your way.
Yeah, you don't need to go anywhere.
Yeah. So overall, I would say I'm going to be a little more generous and say 2 bananas.
All right. Yeah, I definitely don't think it's worth 1. Yeah, I think it's more than
Heath.
that.
Yeah.
Heath is right. It does get to a point where you're wondering why you're watching this. And it's a case of, am I bored, or is it just the story isn't working? For me, it's more so the plot points that are major enough that's supposed to draw you in are misused to the point where a piece of dialogue is thrown out there so early that it starts making you think, well, why did he say that? And then you've got the rest of the movie to think about the whole reason. And then when they go to use that same point, for example, the boyfriend being involved in the whole circle, within the first maybe 20 minutes, his name is thrown out there. And so you're like, okay, well, why did he say that? And it's not like they make you forget about it. Like it rings in your ear for a little while. And so when it eventually does come up, it's a completely wasted opportunity.
And it's reinforced in Phil's dialogue. He keeps mentioning Ronnie.
Yeah.
Like he keeps coming back to him.
Exactly.
Over and over again.
It's moments like that for me just made the film fall apart. Like,
It had a premature climax.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Get that shit some Viagra, because honestly, it could.
This movie needs to harden up.
Fuck oath. It's not worth a 1. I'm gonna side with Dan on this one. I think it's not a 2.5. It's definitely a 2. So 2 for me.
Seeing as though I've been, lucky at guessing a few of the things that are wrong with this movie, I don't think I'm going to be watching it myself. So unfortunately, there's not going to be a banana rating from me.
If you ever do get around to watching it and you feel like throwing in your 2 cents at a later point in time, do so.
Yeah.
Tell us what you think.
Before we finish, you know how you guys said at the beginning that it was a thriller, and I suggested it was more horror?
Yeah.
I think the reason why I don't really see it as a thriller is because the reveals are not that amazing. Like with a thriller, normally it builds up to this massive reveal at the end. You're like, oh my God, I didn't see that coming from anywhere.
There's suspense.
Where a horror, you can see it from the outset.
Exactly,
This
yeah.
person's going to die.
Yeah.
And you're just waiting to see how.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So there's not a lot of story in Freddy Krueger or Friday the 13th. But
Doesn't need to be because it's amazing.
exactly.
Yeah, look, on that point, I see where you're coming from now.
So they might have wanted it to be a thriller, but it wasn't.
I think that's more
Just
what
didn't
they
work.
wanted it to be.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a shock tactics
Yeah,
with the way the girls were set up to be tortured before you even get there.
Yeah. The whole torture porn angle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, that is Bound to Vengeance. And if you feel like watching it, watch it. We're not saying not to. We never really say don't watch anything.
Yeah. If something's got a tank girl rating, just avoid it.
Yeah.
But everything else, maybe it's okay.
Well, I think a high enough tank girl rating, it's worth watching.
Because it could be so bad that it's so good.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
so bad that
Yeah,
it goes
yeah.
all the way around to being amazing.
Yeah. But there's some movies that don't quite reach that height, like Battlefield Earth. I would say that that's so bad nobody should ever watch it ever. Like it's
That was
not
the
even.
one I was going to recommend.
Oh
And
no!
all copies should be burned.
Yeah, I went and bought that movie on DVD so that I could inflict it on people.
I think I've got a
actually
copy of it
genius.
somewhere.
Yeah. All right. We'll have to do that one. Now that we've dropped it, I reckon we have to do that.
All right.
Okay,
Maybe
I'm
we
up for
should.
that.
Maybe that should be the April 1st one.
Elroy
Which,
Hubbard's
funnily
fucking-
enough, the gentleman who played Phil in this movie, Richard Tyson, is also in Battlefield Earth.
Yeah, I
Ooh,
think
what a
he might be.
segue.
I think he might be a Scientologist.
Well,
So-
that sort of explains a few things.
I think everybody in Battlefield Earth wasn't
Yeah.
they? Weren't they?
Wasn't that the point of the movie?
Yeah.
Anyway, we are Theatre Gorillas. We'll catch you next week. And don't forget to stay for the end of the theme song to find out what this week's movie Who Am I is. Bye!
See ya.
See ya.
So, yeah.
Okay, so you've stayed on to find out what this week's movie Who Am I is. And the answer is Ed TV, starring Matthew McConaughey, Jenna Elfman, and Woody Harrelson. And not a bad movie.
When you say
Still haven't seen it.
Woody Harrelson should
I
have
haven't
top
seen it.
billing, surely.
You would think, but McConaughey is the main star.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
McConaughey, and that was before the reconnaissance.
all right.
Right.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, the reconnaissance.
Anyway, we are Theatre Gorillas. Catch you next week. Bye!
See ya.
See ya.
Like,
This podcast is recorded and produced by Theatre Gorillas. Edited by Dan Clark.
This week's fucking hell. It's because I moved my hand and I've fucking hit the cord of the headphone.
Groundhog Day.